Welcome to Audio Products Podcast. We are meeting with pro audio industry veterans, founders, product managers, UX designers, to learn how they build and manage the products we all love. You will get tips how to navigate your career in audio and how to develop a successful audio product, from musical instruments through audio plugins and gaming middleware up to music distribution platforms or consumer electronics like headphones, mics, and even automotive speaker systems. Enjoy.
Here. Nice to be here. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yes, good. I was afraid that we are going to have another difficulty, a technical difficulty
No, enough of a crazy day.
Yep. Good to see you, man. Thank you for, finding some time. I know that you've been busy, crazy busy lately.
Yeah, it's been busy times, but thanks for invitation. No, it's I feel it's like it's a noble thing to be among your guests, I would say.
Listen, so I think it may be actually pretty interesting conversation because, as you know, in this podcast, everything is about building audio products, and usually there are people, founders or like a product manager, so people who come up with ideas.
Yeah.
But I actually love this expression. Somebody once told me that actually building a product is 80%, and 90% is actually delivery, and 10% is just ideas. So there is many people with great ideas, and some people who just build companies say, "Oh, I have this great idea," and they think it's actually already they become millionaires. And 90% is just sort of out of delivery. So,
Well, I think,
I hope that today we'll be able to.
I think you have to do something. I mean, in order to have something done, you have to do it. Not only think about it, but, it's just a part of the equation. Idea is one side of the story, and then execution is another one. Or the other expression in Polish, hell is... I don't know the expression in English, but hell is full of great ideas or goodwill. So
yes, it's paved with better. I think it's
paved,
something
yes.
like paved with good ideas or good intentions.
Yeah.
That's true. So that's why I was knowing that you've spent your entire life managing audio projects, right? So
maybe not entire life.
So I was
some
hoping
years.
that we can. Okay, your career. Okay, professional life, right? You haven't been managing audio products. I've been managing audio products in kindergarten. Oh no. Yeah, but I know. Yeah, you've been you've been doing this for 15 years, something like this, right? Or 20 almost.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's been 13 years of audio, but it's been other things as well during that time. Not only audio, but basically IT and music. Music and IT professionally, it's been 15 years, something like that.
So can you maybe tell I know we've been talking for last couple of months. Very often. Almost weekly. But to people who listen a little bit. What kind, how sort of you combine the audio project management and music at the same time. I know you're an active musician, not so many people in audio. A lot of people sort of got into gear and don't have time much for music anymore.
Well, I would say that almost everyone that I know working in audio industry, audio software or audio tech, is also a musician. Some of them are, practicing professional musicians as well. But I am... So, hello everyone. Just to introduce myself, my name is Maciej Bąk, and I'm a professional IT project manager working in audio industry since 2013. Previously, I was in IT, but telecom industry, something like this. And also, I'm a guitar player, music producer, composer, and mixer. I mix professionally since 2012. I actually, at the moment, I've launched my solo career. Believe it or not, I've entire life I've been either playing guitar in different bands, or I was producing or mixing for other people. Now I've launch my solo career. I write songs and I do videos, and it's basically the music is almost exclusively about that. Plus, I work at Neural DSP as the embedded software project manager. So yeah.
Yep. Actually, the link to Maciek's channel with his solo singles and clips you can find in the description of the podcast. So I encourage to to listen. He actually released. I mean, I think it was on Friday, right? Last Friday, last
Friday was the latest single, the third one, just the third one.
Cool. Maciek, so how did it happen that you actually combine those from musician? Actually, I know it's actually pretty common career for combine audio and music and technology, but I mean, I didn't figure it out. I figured out that I can combine those two things very, very late in my career. So I just maybe you can share. Maybe there are students listening or somebody who can say, "Hey, it is actually cool, a thing to do," right?
I mean, honestly, it just happened. I mean, it wasn't like a big plan. When I was finishing high school, I mean, the idea was to become an engineer, programmer. But then when I was at high school, when I finished, I started my first band. So it kind of, like something, a light in my head that, okay, this is the thing that I want to do. But on the other hand, it was like, okay, I'm settled for the university. I'm going there. So I just went with that. I mean, I didn't have any kind of idea how to make music professionally other than that I was really, really willing. But it took me years to actually, make this thing happen. But on the other hand, well, I didn't have the luck so far. I haven't had the luck to be, like a professional musician exclusively. So it was kind of always these two paths of my career in parallel. Sometimes it was more about music. Sometimes it was more about IT. I did a couple of years of IT management only, almost nothing in music because I was kind of burned out because it's a difficult thing. But since the very beginning, I knew that I wanted to do it, and it was just okay, whenever I can. It was I'm not saying kids, I'm just very determined. But on the other hand, in a way, I am, meaning that I always come back to this. So I'm doing this IT. This is what I do. I'm good at it. This is what I do for a living. But on the other hand, the other part for the soul, so to speak, this is music. And I think that's it's kind of works out in a way that I'm not doing any kind of music that is that gives you financial rewarding very fast. It's difficult. I do what I do musically is probably kind of niche because it's various types of rock and roll and alternative guitar music. So in a way, IT is a way of financing what I do in my spare time. But I'm also extremely lucky to to be in the industry that kind of allows me to combine both things. And this is kind of it fits me in a way that I know that I'm doing something that people like me are using. And this is actually something that at Neural, folks that I know in Warsaw are using Quad Cortex, one of our products. And previously I was working for Avid and people were using Pro Tools. I was working for Pro Tools in Pro Tools projects. So yeah, so it's it's your mind works differently when you know that you're doing this rather than maybe you're just integrating or rebuilding an API for some server where behind a firewall for some banking service in Asia or whatever, which is also it's a job, but it's a different story. It's a different mindset. So I'm kind of lucky in that regard. But we'll go into details of IT in audio.
Yeah. But I was just so curious. I'm always curious why people. I mean, how people sort of find this path, or just find a way that this is actually a nice way to, a nice compromise to be around the art or doing a tools for musicians. So and like I say, it's just to me it came pretty late, and I 100% agree. Right, this is at least doing something which I use, or actually I would love to others to use, so I'm really passionate about it. So that's a nice compromise.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to feel that this is something that is used by people on everyday basis, and this is something hands-on, so you actually impact the way people work rather than you're building a piece of a bigger puzzle, like you're delivering a tool to build a window in a building rather than just delivering a window. That's the difference. So
Yep.
yeah.
But so Maciek, I mean, from your perspective after this, many years, what's the, and I know that you can compare, but because you also like manage projects which were outside music industry,
Yeah.
so how in a sense, I mean, from the project management perspective, so like a delivery, product, music and generally like a wider audio companies are different from, how project manager differs, why is actually so, or would any project manager find himself a path right in the music industry?
Well, it's a tough question because on one hand it has its differences from other the whole other audio industry, but on the other hand there are other, audio industry, IT industry, I don't know, sometimes I think it's not an industry. The IT is just like the part of every other industry. It's just like like administration, HR, things like that. Finance is a part of every industry. So IT is basically like a kind of a part of a framework for every company. So I would say that IT in the case of audio company, specifically audio hardware and music software, audio software company, is not that much different from things like, for instance, mobile application company that does some kind of mobile services like banking or whatever company that uses things that have to be updated very frequently. So yeah, so the one of the things that I see in audio industry is that it has to be pretty agile, meaning that you have to be quick. There's the time to market is a big factor in this industry, like a huge factor. And also the competition plays a huge role. I mean, everybody is looking what everyone else is doing. It's not like, okay, we have this application, we are a bank. Of course, there are other banks, other applications, but it's okay. I mean, we have our clients. It's probably more like there's like more, how to say, more, the time to market is longer, maybe a little bit, because it's not that hasty. Although I may be wrong, but here, that where a competitor.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, we have a small
it's just
delay.
Like a very saturated. Yeah, I see that. So we have. So we are saying that because market is saturated, it's relatively small as well. So it's just like a community, rather than this huge like a mass market. So then it's so easy to, I don't know, do something similar,
suppose,
and that's why.
I mean, I cannot speak for other industries, but my impression from working in the audio industry is that you have to be pretty much up to date in terms of what's happening on the market, because people will come to you asking for things, and they will be sending, commenting and so on. The feedback that is present in social media and on the internet is a huge part of the equation. So it puts pressure on companies to be up to date. Of course, you cannot fulfill every request, and you have to like select, because there's just so much you can do. But in the audio industry, this is the thing that, in my opinion, plays the biggest factor. That it's very agile. It's very like, okay, this company did that, so when the other company is gonna respond, and it's a lot about this. And definitely, this discussion are going, and definitely, all the exhibitions and trade shows are the occasion to have that exchange. Plus, there is AI in equation, which also like kind of speeds things up to a certain level, because a lot of things that was needed, like traditional tools, meaning traditional plugins and so on, can be now done with AI. So that kind of also like puts another level for companies to like in my opinion, to rethink like what we actually gonna offer to the people when they can have music done with Suno, right? So I think that there is a big pressure on that. So that impacts project management and the way you have to organize things to be able to basically deliver from initial like idea to deliver it to to the market for public release, so to speak.
It's interesting because on one, I see what you're saying. On the other hand, I just wonder. It's just like I'm thinking out loud. Like to me, music industry also looks a little bit sort of laid back. So also because of the people that are working in it, and there are so many companies who do not sort of think of becoming like a large corporation.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to
probably
say
when
that
you're a
a lot
very
of
small
startups.
company, probably when you're a very small company, a startup, and have a steady cash flow, and so to speak, or can afford not being too hasty, is okay. But I think that at some point, this factor comes to the equation. Other than that, what's other differences between like IT for audio software and other IT? I wouldn't say there's a much of a difference in my opinion. I mean, definitely the people are the difference, being that they are pretty passionate about what they're doing because of what we said before, that they come from music, a lot of them, rather than in other industry you say, okay, I really love like code refactoring or API stuff or servers. Probably there are people who love, but it's a little bit different story. So the people, the
Yeah, but
second.
Maciek,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I can see that we have a little lag.
Yeah.
I mean, I still want to like sort of like, if you don't
Mhm.
mind, like a sort of like a go around this contradiction that I can see. That on one hand you're saying we need to be agile and time to market. On the other hand, culture is like a non-corporate and passionate musicians, etc. So it seems to me a little bit like a conflict, right? So,
No.
and I also see that a lot of people are not like a professional engineers by the or like a managers by education. They're just musician first who somehow transition into music tech, right? So they were just learning a lot of stuff, right? That
Yeah,
for
but
wider
maybe
IT
maybe
is
maybe to add to what I mean, it's not like, I think that basically this in my opinion, this industry is about answering the needs of people. I mean, you can create a plugin, but and you can, everyone says, okay, it's a cool plugin, but then the people want this plugin to, okay, maybe be developed and so on. So I think that the loop between you as a producer, manufacturer of a product, and the customers is pretty short. There is a short distance, so there's a feedback loop that runs constantly. And even if the company is laid back, even if people are not pressured for constant updates, in this industry I can see that there is this constant loop happening, which is not so much in other industries, right? Because I mean, a lot of people there are discussing music and music production. Probably less people are discussing banking apps. I mean, customers can put some feedback on social media, but it's not the same thing, right? I can hardly imagine someone discussing, okay, so we've compared 3 banking apps yesterday and blah, 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 while there are people who are discussing, okay, we've compared like 3 amp modelers or 3 compressor plugins. So I think that in this regard, this is a very live industry. So in my feeling, and this is a feeling because I'm not a product guy, I'm a more project manager, the way this feedback goes through the product people to project manager means that I need to be prepared to address these sudden changes. This is the bottom line here from my perspective.
yeah.
That's why I said agile, because the release process ideally needs to be very fast. I mean, as fast as possible, but not faster.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I still have, I mean, a little doubt, how. I mean, I also like work in the wider sort of IT, so to speak, and I saw like a bit more pressure, so to speak. I mean, okay, I can imagine that here you don't need to have so much pressure because people actually need to be even hold off, they're so passionate that they can like easily over engineer, and they don't need to sort of be managed in the sort of traditional hierarchical way that much, because they will actually do it for the users anyway, because they are just so passionate about the product. At least what I see. I'm not sure if you would agree with me, right?
Yeah, I mean, the passion that drives people to work in audio industry, audio software industry, definitely is a factor and definitely is a motivator. Of course, it can go only so far, but it's definitely a strong motivator.
Cool. Okay. So Maciek, I mean, very like a one-on-one question, right? Very basic. But I mean, project, what is a project and what is a program? I know, it's just like for somebody like 15 years in the industry, it's like a super, like a, maybe sounds like a stupid question, but maybe they're just people who like never like manage projects and also like this equation, where you have portfolio and programs, so what's like if you were just like to describe as a new joiner, like an engineer, a student, what is a project and what is a program?
Yeah, I mean, I think that project is very simple to understand. This is something that you have to do, like you have a scope of things to do within restricted time and resources. That's it. You want to achieve something with time, with resources, and the resources are time and money, basically, right? Or time and people, but this is all about money. So that's it. Whatever that is, it can be building a software, it can be a change to something, it can be a research, whatever. But there is like an outcome of this. It can be stopped after the outcome is achieved, or it can be ongoing, with delivering different results every like X amount of time. Like every 3 months we deliver something and the project is going for years. But that's a project. And then the program, I would say, in my experience, because I'm not fan of, like, I think that some kind of by the book definitions don't always work out in practice. So in my experience, program can be defined in very different ways. So basically, a program is a group of things that are happening. That's on the most simple way for me. So you can have a group of projects running, and that's a program. And then you can ask, what's the difference between program and a portfolio? Well, a portfolio of projects is something that, again, in my experience and my understanding, this can be super various projects, like from applications to integrations, like applications for like software company, software house can have a portfolio. There can be a program manager with a portfolio of projects, right? Or maybe a project manager, team lead who has project managers. Every project manager has a group of projects, so that guy has a portfolio of projects. Or maybe a customer relationship manager who has a portfolio of projects for that customer, and each project is managed by different project manager. So that's a portfolio. From me, it's a group of projects, various. But program is kind of group of initiatives, projects, activities that have something in common. So it can be something like you have one big piece of software and little software around it. Like for instance, Pro Tools could be seen as a program, I guess, because you have a Pro Tools release, but you have all these small plugins released with Pro Tools. So that's one thing. You can have a DAW and all the plugins that are attached, are released every time. With every new release, you have one DAW and a number of plugins. So it's a program. Probably someone is managing a program to put this all together, deliver this. So it's more of a program from like a delivery perspective, like a product perspective. But you can have, for instance, I don't know, I mean, probably a company that releases, AI agents. So it can be a program about, I don't know, AI agents for finance and so on. So program, something about release, delivery, one major product, couple of satellites products maybe, or maybe just a group of products. And each product is
or components, or like or maybe components, right? So like when the product is complicated enough actually to have multiple projects just to deliver one product, right?
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. So a product is actually a program and consists of multiple projects that combine to a single release, right? For instance. Then so that's looking at the program for a more like project organizational perspective. But you can also have a view on the program from technical perspective. So program is strictly something around technology. So for instance, you have a big DAW, for instance, and you have to like implement UI bits and pieces here and there. Design, I mean, UI design, UI implementation, then maybe some optimization, performance, then DSP part, then internal plugins. So not separate plugins, but just internal plugins. Then maybe some API, some interface API, or maybe some export formats and so on. All this is so complicated that you cannot have just simply one project team because it's too big. So we have a number of project teams, and it's a technical program. So eventually you work technically on a product, but you manage this from technical point of view. So you go deep with project teams about all the technical developers and so on. So then in this kind of program, the common factor is that, like, software development. That's basically the technology. It's not the other programs that we say that you have like one product and you have satellite products. You can have a program manager who basically gathers just deliverables from different companies or different vendors, all the plugins, and combines it. So it's more like organizing things. Technical program manager is someone who like works with technical project managers to deliver a product, one product, maybe a couple of products, but basically it's a work of a couple of technical teams. So probably it's not easy to actually explain exactly what it means in practice. So I would say that from my experience, a program is basically can be working on a very non-technical level and can be working on a very specific technical level, focused mostly on software delivery and all the processes around software delivery. So for instance, a program manager who manages maybe a third example of a program, it can be different things around one area of products, like maybe, there's software development, there's maybe testing initiatives, there is maybe some research, but maybe also resourcing around that, like maybe cooperation with some academical organizations, universities, maybe some also exchange or students and so on. So a lot of activities around one product or technology, but not strictly related to software development. So organizing all this, and also maybe some kind of regular meetings and so on. So that could be a program manager who organizes all that on a higher level, but every area has a dedicated manager. Like software development has a manager, testing has a QA manager, maybe there is like a resourcing, there's HR manager, and the program manager is all about this, like just putting this all together, make it in function. So it's so it's like a cross-functional thing. I could imagine something like this. So what's like from practical point of view, what's the biggest difference between project and program? Program is basically a level up. It can be very technical. It can be a little bit more on software side, not very technical, but it's not strictly related to a single. It can be a group of projects, or it can be a project and a lot of stuff that are happening around the project, which someone needs to coordinate, basically.
Yep. You see, I just wonder, while you were talking about this, I just was thinking in which moment of, the company's growth, like a project function gets defined. And I mean, I know that this may sound, what we are discussing may sound very sort of corporate, but on the other hand, I can see relatively small companies. I mean, I can see program managers of companies like SoftTube, or, not like a huge corporations, right? So I guess I'm not sure what your thoughts are, but it seems to me that as long as there is I think it's just like we have to break it down into two questions, right? Because again, projects and programs. First of all, I just wonder, can be a program without projects? I don't, I'm not sure, but I
think there can be, because it really comes down to how you want to shape this and phrase it, and what do you actually need. I mean, every company needs a bit of a structure. I'm not a CEO, so I'm, my point of view or my perspective is limited to what I do on every day. But basically, with some things you can run without like super formal structure and so on. So then it's maybe nobody calls this a project. It's something that people do on a regular basis because they want. Maybe there is a need. Maybe it's a very spontaneous things that just turns up during the discussions in the company, and there is the decision that let's just do this, right? And then someone says, okay, this needs to go formal, let's make it a project, let's assign these people as, you are the project team, you are spending X amount of your time monthly on this, so let's have this as a project, let's maybe build a timeline, let's say, okay, we're gonna do this for this time, so deliverables, milestones, and so on. So the border between this like non-structured thing that people are just doing something and the project is pretty thin, and sometimes it's just about having someone who says, okay, we have to like make this formal project. And I think that this is something that needs to be decided in a company when we want to start do things like this. I think that every company has a moment where people realize, okay, we have to go a little bit formal because otherwise we're going to be lost in the amount of things that we are doing. So no, it's going to be very confusing, like what's happening, who's doing what, for when, and so
creating
on.
a system
Yes.
simply like
so this is about creating a system and making it very practical. And I want to underline this should be very practical, because nobody wants to go super corporate, especially like small company to mid company. But it's about being practice, and it's about having things that help you, so that in a year time you're not wasting time because you didn't organize things properly and you're lost. That's it.
Yeah, or you have like a major fuck up, right? And yeah, I don't know, some kind of deliver something which is not tested properly, or fail to deliver.
Yeah, things.
Have you seen like a fuck ups like this? I mean, I don't want to like point fingers at any company, but I mean, even maybe by observation.
It's a very, very human thing, so that sometimes there is a lack of like who is like accountable for something, or maybe people are doing things but there is no one who says, okay, we need this for this date, or maybe get people together and say, okay, realistically, where are you with this, and get this feedback and maybe work out some realistic times. I mean, so have I seen fuck ups? Yes, I've seen a lot of fuck ups, but this is mainly because there's the information is not flowing, or maybe there's sometimes a lack of single person who just basically drives things. So asks questions, gets answers, and builds the status, where are we, and so on. It sounds very dull, honestly, like when you speak about it, but it's essential, because a lot of people in this industry just wanna they wanna do things. They wanna be implementing, testing, coding, designing, and this is their role, right? They apply for the job. They wanna know what they want to do. So they should. I mean, they don't want to be bothered with the big picture. There should be someone who looks over the big picture. So I've seen a lot of issues. I think it's a topic for another discussion, like why things fail, but what are the common mistakes. But in general, yes, I mean, this is the lack of someone who drives this on a ground.
But I mean, can you just like, I mean, once again, I mean, don't want to for you to feel awkward, or like if you don't want to. So, I mean, again, it's not like to talk about specifically where we work, but I mean, I mean, honestly, I mean, I asked this question, but I can't find one specific. I can only like maybe relate more, to gaming, for example. I don't know. Once again, with my great respect, it's a Polish company, CD Projekt Red, and like a Cyberpunk. It was like like what, 2 years? I mean, how planned this, right? Or like who actually make some kind of scoping at the beginning? I know again that game, it's just like such a huge project, right, to deliver, like multi-million, like hundreds of people working on it. So I know it can be crazy, but I mean, I was just like how can be somebody and still like releasing it with so full of bugs, right? That company shares dropped like again, I'm a huge fan, and
again, it's about what you want to do, how much time you have, how much money you have. So this is a project. If a project is big that you need to divide it to different project teams, it becomes a program. It's as simple as that. So coming back to your original question, what's the difference between project and a program? Well, probably program starts where there is like multiple project teams or multiple projects and some kind of a common factor. That's it. So it's a more high level management of different stuff.
But listen, I mean, I asked this question and then actually another sort of like a subject unpacked for me. Ask if there can be a program without a project management. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
And,
answer that.
let me let me. I mean, okay. So I'll tell later what I have in mind. You answer, and
Okay,
I'll tell
so
you
quick
why.
answer. I think to some extent yes, because for instance, I've seen situations where program manager is someone who just basically. There are a couple of initiatives like around maybe HR, maybe around like research and so on, which are ongoing. They're not really called projects, but there are resources and people who are, for instance, delivering something, or maybe they do market research, some reports, but nobody like calls it like officially a project. It's just a team that delivers something, and there's someone who like puts this all together, or maybe runs this, have like regular status calls and status meetings, and make sure that there's like a purpose to it, or a high level organization. But formally all this stuff is not are not called project, but technically speaking, I probably would say that if there's a program, there have to be projects happening, even though just someone doesn't call them project. That's it. That's sometimes like this. You have a program manager who runs a number of initiatives which are not formally called projects, but when you look at it, it's doing some things for amount of time, delivering something. So that's a project, right? So
Gotcha. Maciek, let me just sorry to interrupt. Let me just tell you why I was just thinking so much about this, right? Because I can see that many especially product organization, right, who a software product, who actually have an ongoing effort to constantly build the product, and especially those agile organizations, I know it's just that we're getting into methodologies and naming conventions, which sometimes are confusing. There's, a long debate about project manager, scrum master, product owner, what is the difference between product owner and product manager? But I mean, so the projects, or there is you have multiple scrum teams that they have their own product owners and scrum master. Technically, they don't have project manager. I mean, is the scrum master a project manager? Yeah. So then there is actually program manager who simply like you mentioned, just sort of make sure that really like in the scaled agile, just manage dependency, right? So formally you may not have a a list of project managers, but have a company. I mean, somebody on the organization so coordinates between the different scrum teams, right? Because each scrum team only, like you mentioned, just think about I have to have an outcome of my I need to deliver a specific feature, for example, like feature teams, right? I think it's also like a element, right, of a scaled agile, like a feature teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are going into the terminology. I don't know to how people are familiar with this, but basically what you're saying is that there is a number of teams that work in some way, like Scrum is a framework of working. So there is someone, there is a number of teams. Each team makes some kind of delivers something. So you could say that you need someone who coordinates all these teams. In a way, I think it's a program manager, because a Scrum team is in a way a project team. I think in my perception, in my experience. And then if you have like 4 Scrum teams or 5, and they are doing some stuff, someone needs to make sure that this is going something. So this is like a program manager, and this may be like 5 teams doing completely different stuff. But it wouldn't be a program, because, as I mentioned, the program has a factor that binds everything. So probably these teams are working on some kind of product or initiative. So then the program manager makes sure that this is coordinated in time, right? So, for instance, if there's a DAW, coming back to audio industry, or maybe like a set of plugins, like a plugin suite, something like this, and every team works on a different bits. So then someone like program manager coordinates it, so that all the deliverables are done for time, all the risks are reported by teams, addressed. There are actions. What else? I mean, how fast the teams are like progressing with the work, so it's called like a burn down. So how fast things are happening, what are the blockers, why things are slowing down here and there, and then the dependency. So one team is blocked by stuff that's to be delivered by someone else, and so on. All this stuff, you need a program manager, because I mean, someone needs to coordinate this, because one project team or one scrum team is contained. So if they need an input from someone else, that's a dependency, and you have a number of dependencies between teams. So for this team to reach out to another team, and someone needs to coordinate this. It's better to go through one person who makes a track of this and helps people identify this, because people don't want to waste time. Someone says, okay, I need this kind of API being exposed by another team. So the program manager will go to that team, talk to it, coordinate this, make sure that both teams know what, when should happen, and so on. So I don't know if that's answered the question, but this is like the way I would see program management in practice, honestly. But some people can tell that this is like a big project consisting of a smaller project. So a lot is about terminology, and the thing that makes it more difficult is that every company has its own terminology. A program manager in one company can be a different thing than program manager in a second company. In one company, it will be someone who manages delivery of a number of products, but doesn't really do anything with software development. In other company, it's going to be the guy who just manages a couple of technical teams, talks to a number of project managers, and it's very technical. So I'm sorry.
And as long as they understand each other, that's fine.
Yeah.
And as long as they understand each other, that's fine, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting what you say. I mean, because as you know, I sometimes organize workshops for product managers, right, for product teams. And even if in a very large and major organization, or you would say they're just very major, like a initial discussion is, what is actually a product, So can we actually agree? I mean, initially I was a bit puzzled that even sort of, you would say major companies have a problem to define what they mean between each other. And then I was once actually attending a conference which has nothing to do with audio and music, but it was like a product conference, and there was a guy from the office furniture company, and he was presenting the case study when he was explaining it, like a product data management, how we say it, because like a furniture, you have a chair that has, I don't know, like a leather, cover, or maybe some kind of, fishnet, or it can be black and white. It can be with the, how do you call it? Like a, back, sort of thing, or just a tool, so, there can be so many variations that they didn't know what's the variation, what is the version of the product, etc. So for the company, which was, I don't know, a few hundred people, just to agree a common terminology. So what they mean by, is this a portfolio of product? Is a product? This is a version of the product, variation of the product. So they actually have, and especially that all this actually has to be reflected in Jira and ERP system, in Salesforce, in whatever your CRM system is, right? I mean, so they say, communication. So I think what I hear what you're saying is that I think the same applies in project management. It doesn't really matter, the methodology, etc., as long as it works and is actually somehow, when people understand each other, they understand the responsibilities. You don't have to.
Yeah, of course, there are some like standards like the PMI, Agile, Scrum, Kanban, Lean management, and so on. But eventually, every company applies it in its own way. When it works, it works. How do you want to phrase it and call it? That's your thing. The most important thing, I think, in project management and program management, or whatever management, is basically communication. So making things clear. So from my perspective, yes, there is a time where people have to know who is a project manager in company, and what he or she does, and who is the program manager, who is a team leader, who is like product owner, product manager, and so on. So you have to name this, and you have to be clear for the people, because otherwise it's confusing, and otherwise people say, okay, it's corporate, I don't understand it, I don't know why this is needed, and so on. So yes, communication.
Yeah. Communication. And how the hardware? I know that you have exposure to hardware. I mean, I have never was involved in, building a hardware product. So I'm just curious, how, from your perspective, project management in hardware domain differs.
Yeah, so I mean, again, going to the specifics, we have to touch a little bit about, how projects are managed. So basically software projects, mostly in my experience, are done agile. So you have this iterative approach, so that you work in a short pieces of time, you prioritize things, you deliver something, and then you evaluate this, and then you decide, okay, depending on the outcome of this, in the next short period of time, we're gonna do this, and so on. So you incrementally add value, deliver features, and you build product this way. So you don't plan things like from 10 years ago for the 10 years, but you just start with something and you build. You have the vision, but you validate the outcome along the way. In general, that's the most common, I would guess, way to do software. Although there are software projects that are planned from the very beginning to very end, written down all the scenarios, and you just go straight through it. With hardware, it's a little bit different because I'm not a hardware project manager, so I've learned hardware management, hardware development management I'm learning in Neural DSP, but this is very much waterfall, meaning that this is very much date driven and planned from the very beginning to the very end, but not so much. So there are phases that allow some kind of iterative approach, like exploration. Like in general, like this standard for hardware product is like phasing and gate system. So you have the EVT gate, DVT gate, and PVT gate. Like EVT is like engineering validation, a test, I think. Then DVT is like design validation, and PVT is a product validation. So in the first phase, it's more like designing the very, how to say, base hardware, testing
PC boards,
yes, PC board testing, bring up testing whether it is going to work, and so on. Then on the design validation, you build more items of the product, and you have a chance to validate, okay, so the design, meaning that how we design the product is working fine, and so on. And then in product validation phase, you basically have the ready product and you do the bug fixing, so on. And this is like, the gate system that works. There's also the other way of looking at it. So the exploration phase, development phase, and maintenance. So it's again, exploration is like when you discuss the design of the hardware product and so on, but you have to already think about the software that's on that product. So it's a firmware. Like I'm the firmware project manager, so that exploration phase, that first phase of creating a hardware product, means that there are discussion, okay, so what do we want to have in terms of the firmware on the product? What hardware do we need to have this firmware running? So it's a lot of ideas being discussed, technologies being researched, and so on. And then you go to development phase, where you have these gates, EVT, DVT, PVT. So in development, at some point, the basic hardware is fixed. So it means that there is a time that you have to implement firmware on it, and this firmware is done in agile way. So you implement a little bit, you test, okay, we're adding more, and you test, and so on. The agile way is very good for software because it assumes that testing happens frequently. So it's not like you're building for a year and then you start testing, but you're constantly testing and validating and changing if needed. So this is this DVT, and this is where I enter. We are doing, the software the firmware bit. So it's a little bit agile, but then the project moves on. There's, like another phase, the PVT bug fixing, and after that, it's an end of a development product. Product is launched, and then you go into maintenance phase. So basically, from my perspective, the hardware is fixed. It's already released. The product is on the market, and you just you do like
continue maintain.
Yeah, you bug fix. it's a bug fixing of firmware. So you release updates with new features and bug fixing, but hardware is fixed. So in general, what's the difference between software and hardware project? It's that hardware is driven by dates. It's designed, the whole 3 phases: the exploration, development, maintenance, and the development with the EVT. There are milestones because you have to take into account like suppliers for the parts, shipping times, stuff like
production.
this. Production. Manufacturer like turnaround. So it's really a lot of scheduling. Building the schedule takes a lot of time, and firmware has to fit a window. In that window, you can work in Scrum or Kanban, whatever. That's easy. I mean, it's better to work in Scrum because of what I said. It allows you to validate this on a regular basis, but you have a window. So that's the thing. Sometimes you just can't exceed that window, because if you do, then the manufacturer is already booked for another year for something else, and you've lost your window. So that's the difficult thing. So in a way, you're working against the deadline. Once the product is on the market and you're just working on firmware updates, it's basically just like almost any other software development. But here you are developing for a platform, hardware platform, while, for instance, mobile applications developing for iPhone or Android, or software development is just basically for a computer.
Yep. Gotcha. That's I mean, I always wanted to actually, get involved into real like a hardware project from scratch. And I was always like looking with some jealousy about people who have although, I mean, hard is hard. Even if I look at the startups, sometimes it is, 2-3 years, like a very sort of unusual for software people to see, like a launching, right, a product for so many years. It's such a different time to market, right?
It's a longer. I would say it's a longer period because, yes, you're really tied to what's the situation on the market, like, all the logistics, the manufacturing time. You have to take that into account. And sometimes it can be very painful to actually build a schedule like that. But yes, it goes in months, if not years, for some products. I mean, I haven't experienced like years, but it can be a long month, definitely more than a year sometimes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, more like for startups, that I love to come, to Superbooth, right? The Berlin, it's hard to call them trade shows. It's more like a great party. But I mean, there's so many like startups, in the hardware department, all these synths and modular synths and some crazy, like a weird, cool stuff. And I mean, I always like have this kind of, like product fetish, so to speak, and I ask people, how are they prepared? So did they already like calculate? Do they have a business case? Did you consider like a production cost? And like not that I want to sort of, obviously those questions are mostly, with the intention to help, but also like curious how, how well are they prepared, or are they still like have the risk, risk they are not even aware, right? So they manufacture something and then didn't calculate, some, margins, etc. And, you end up having great product that is actually no way to be profitable, right? So from the project perspective should be either killed or like at least very engineered, right? But I mean, startup.
I'm not an expert on designing like the hardware products from like a product manager perspective, but definitely, again, this system that I described definitely rather helps than works against you. Although I could imagine that at the very beginning you just build a product, you validate it like on a very, how to say, garage style, and then people order and it just works out. But then if you go on a grander scale, of the product is more complicated and you have to build a factory or manufacturing system, all this, this whole management process probably can be applied, because it makes life much more easy. So we are not talking about two people making a product. We're talking about a company. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm still learning this. And this is pretty demanding in terms of software, because before you have a first launch of the product, you don't have much room to wiggle. So you have to be precise on, because when there's a software to build, whatever this is, the key thing that people probably underestimate is like give engineers time to talk about it, look at it, maybe do some prototyping, basically estimate, like get good at guessing or providing time that is needed. And then you have to add some buffer to it, and you have to be pretty precise with this when you construct a hardware timeline, because if you miss your window and you don't your manufacturer doesn't have a window to produce, it's not good.
Yeah. And also, like, yes, I think from the product management perspective, having all this like a planning from the financial and this perspective is so important, right? Because you can go to the next phase and start putting together spending money, but without having some initial exercise, at least calculating what the bills of materials and manufacturing, etc. You may end up actually not having a profitable product, right?
I mean, that's why
having very hard time actually.
That's why this gating phase is crucial, because it validates the product on every stage, like starting from an idea, like a business case. If business case is passed, then you go into exploration phase. Then if it's passed, then you go into the development phase, which means that this EVT, DVT, PVT, and then release, and then is maintenance. So every phase ends with a gate that says, okay, gate is passed, so we move on, or we don't move on. So this is what I know.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
You know what? I mean, before I actually say this, if I can make a small a break, and if you don't mind, and just remind our listeners that they can follow, and actually not only they can, but they should follow the podcast. And if they type, or if you guys type Audio Products Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever other platform, you can definitely find us. You can also join Audio Product Academy Discord, and actually you can also support our podcast. And if you go to Buy Me a Coffee page and type Audio Podcast, you'll find us. And it's Buy Me a Coffee, meaning that you can, for a price of a single coffee, give a small a donation, help us help us to keep inviting great guests. So remember, follow Audio Products Podcast, and thank you so much. So a small, sorry Maciek, so small advertisement.
No worries.
But actually you touch an interesting point, like a relation between a product team and a project team, so I'm not sure what kind of thoughts you have on this one, from your experience. You work quite a lot, right, with product team?
I work a lot with product owner, and then product owners work with product managers. So again, from my point of view, to make life simple, because I think it's great to make things as simple as they can be in IT. Oh, can you hear me, Wojciech?
Yes, I can. I still can hear you very well.
Maybe there's some lagging, because unfortunately I'm going through cell phone internet. So, but anyway, so in my understanding and in my practice, product manager is someone who is more on the business side of things. So there's an idea for the project, there is the business analysis for that, the business idea, basically why, who needs this, all this stuff, and then maybe also a design, a vision, and then when it comes to having this and compressing this, or maybe transforming this to more technical details, that's product owner. So that's someone who actually has a technical ability to get these ideas from product manager and work them with the team, the engineers, into what needs to be done on an engineering level. That's the person. And I'm talking to that person because I need to make sure the engineers know what they need to do and for when. But basically, it's what do we need to do? That's the first question. And the person that can answer is product owner working with the engineers. They work out the answer, what, and then the engineers work out how and when. So I don't need product manager, honestly. I mean, the product manager can tell me, okay, we want to release this in Q2 2026. That comes from market studies, competition studies, talking to like stakeholders, finance, or whatever. But they give me business roadmap. They tell me the intention for when, and then my goal is to work with product manager and engineers to give back information when is this possible with the scope that you want. So this is it. I'm just basically coordinating
with product
work.
owners. You mean with product owners?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Because I talk to product owners talk to product managers. Of course, I also talk to product managers because it's just exchange information. But in general, I work in this tandem, like myself, product owner, and engineering teams, so that I make sure they know what to do. They give information when can this be done and for when this is expected. Plus, they tell me about all the issues that they have. So if there are problems, we need to change the timeline or change the scope. So so from my perspective, I'm not really a lot in the product management world because honestly, it's like plenty of stuff to do in project manager. So I kinda deliberately put a line for myself. I'm not stepping into product land because that would be just probably too much. It's easier for me to do my part when I'm kind of separated from product, mean that I don't suggest or comment or deliberate on the features. It's not my call. My call is to say, I have this request to be done. I'm gonna work with the people to say if this is doable or if it's not doable, what should we do? That's it. I coordinate.
Sorry,
honestly, I mean,
sorry.
deep in the heart, it's not like I'm completely detached. But professionally, I honestly say it works for me to have this line because it's really a lot of things to cover when you manage a team and the release and product development, so that you don't want to be the guy that has gives opinion about whether this is a good feature or not. I mean, what can I say? I mean, I don't have time to think about it. Like I don't
No, I totally get it. I was just I was just like laughing a little bit because working in Pro Tools and being mixing engineer is very hard to turn on.
Yeah, I mean, I mix in Pro Tools.
That you're using.
Yeah, I mix in Pro Tools, but when I worked for a Pro Tools project, I didn't really interfere with what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It was like a business decision roadmap, and then like breaking down the roadmap into technical specification for the engineering teams. That was product owner. So honestly, it would be too much for me. Just be into project management, all this stuff that relates to it, like all the project metrics, statistics, estimation, dates, and then also like have something to say on the product. I wouldn't have like enough time to provide the input, but yeah, I mean,
I mean,
it's super important.
I'm joking.
Yeah, this lag. It's super important. It's super important to have a good relationship with product owner, and you can't really work the project if you don't have product owner, because he's like the mastermind of it. Honestly, that's it.
Yeah, I think it's those two, maybe people in those two roles can like very easily understand each other, because like as if project manager is like accountable for delivery, and it's great that company knows who is actually accountable for actually making this happen. The same thing, actually there must be a mastermind behind actually what has to be done, and this cannot be that if actually it's diluted, then it's actually pretty tough, right? Because nobody knows who takes the decision. And I mean, I think that's great that there is actually a roadmap owner, right? And somebody who calls the shots and actually make the research and combine on turn.
Yeah, but that's on the product side. That's your part. That's on the
yeah,
product
but I'm saying that actually it's easy to like empathize with each other, because it would be pretty hard for project manager, if somebody would actually come and tell him, interfere with the timelines and milestones, etc. So the same way we can respect product team, because there must be someone who take accountability for the results and for which means like for what has to be built, right? So having like a clear accountability, right? One takes decision actually what to be built, and the second actually how it's going to build, right? So how quickly and etc. etc. Right? And then it's you know what I'm trying to say, like I mean, I wouldn't like to be interfered, so the same way I don't sort of like interfere with other people's work, so I can, be treated the same way.
Yeah, and it's honestly, also about, kind of a work hygiene, so to speak. So if I'm really like following up on the number of stuff to do, like this, the dependencies between tickets or tasks, and then how many is left, how fast people are working on, and so on. The other, like to take some product things on my plate and like think about it, I wouldn't have enough time for this. It would be just too much detail. So you have to. That's me. That works for me because I'm focusing on making, like, putting the tracks for the train, but I'm not actually driving the train. The train is driven by product owner and the engineers, but I'm putting the rails and making sure the rails are there. So that's the metaphor. I wouldn't be able to put the rails and also drive the train and make sure the train is like driving nicely and so on and so on. So
Maciek, I know we have to like slowly get to an end. I know we've been discussing this, offline, but I mean, for the listeners, do you think AI is a threat to program managers?
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of this like hyped people.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, project manager management is about communication. So if whenever work is done by people, and whenever you want to have like a nice organization, where you have to take into account the human factor, that we are all humans, we have better and worse days and so on, and basically interacting with humans is the best way to keep this together. So I think that AI will not treat project managers in the way that someone who can interact with people will always be very valuable, and you will always need a person like this. Of course, you can argue that when, in times where you have a lot of meetings with people, without their camera on, and sometimes even like speaking on Slack and so on, you can argue that this can be managed by an agent. Probably yes. But still, there are times where you have like put everyone on a meeting and be very explicit, be like sometimes put pressure in a good way for people, mobilize them and so on. And I don't know, maybe
I know
at some point AI will be good, but for people, they will know that they are interacting with an AI entity. So at this moment in history, I think that it's gonna be discouraging for people, demobilizing, so to speak. But maybe in 10 years, when we're gonna have like replicants among us, maybe this will be a different story. But for now, I don't see, honestly, I don't see a threat. But I do see that all more and more stuff like documenting things, like preparing statistics, like risks, basically creating very nice flashy presentations. This can all be handled by AI, and this is like a nice thing. Although I personally never have been a believer in like, okay, so I'm gonna do a flashy presentation versus a plain table, but if the information is there, I don't really care. But I know that this matters sometimes in some organizations. So yes, AI helps with that, but it's like, okay, so maybe the project manager is not gonna have like tons of like manual, office like editing work with documents, but nevertheless, this is not about project management. It's not about this. It's about making sure the communication and the information flows to everyone, and everyone is aware what needs to happen and when and so on, and everyone is aware of what's happening. So no, I don't think. Couple of next year, definitely not, in my opinion.
Listen, I think, you mentioned something that also sparked, an idea, maybe not only like putting this like a positive pressure, but sometimes it's also like how to say, decompress a little bit of, the stress. So it can be also like some kind of glue, and, people are stressed out and you sort of like get together, and it can be really like motivating by, like being able somebody, get together and, like have a small talk, right? And chat, and it really keeps, people sort of, human. But like you say, who knows what's going to happen, right? We'll just end up with,
maybe in 10 years, like AI agents will be like independent beings that will be just, functioning in a digisphere, so to speak. And maybe people will get used to it. Okay, here's our family, and here's our little AI agent who lives with us. And then in a company, we have 10 employees and 2 AI guys, AI agents who are working with us. And, it's going to be like in Matrix, people and programs. Who knows? Yeah. But for now, it's not the case yet. So for now, I don't see any risk. I think I still see a lot of problems with communication in software. And it's not about, audio software. It's basically about software development. A lot of people having issues with like communicating by many causes, like personal things, personal history, the way they remote work, being a little bit shy, being maybe not super comfortable with speaking. So there's a lot to work around that, and a good project manager can, I think that can somehow make it work. I mean, not somehow, can make it work, meaning that the information flows and nobody feels like being omitted and so on and so on. So I think that I'm not super convinced that AI can do this, or maybe can do it, but maybe not. It's not cannot react to stuff as fast as people. Maybe the thing about intuition to people also is a factor.
Emotional intelligence, real emotional intelligence and connection. True.
So yeah. So this is what I think. We'll see.
Very optimistic. Let's say optimistic observation for an end, or maybe some hope. So maybe we should
I don't know.
Conclude with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to conclude maybe with saying that it's really hard for me to say to you that project management in audio industry, specifically audio software, is something super specific other than what I said. I think it's not that much specific, but the things that I mentioned too, I mean, first of all, the people. Secondly, the yes, people, culture. People are cool in this industry. That's it. I mean, it's great because it's by the fact that people are cool, it's gonna be less corporate, and that's it. And it's like, more rock and roll, whatever you mean by that, but it's more easygoing. That's it. Secondly, this feedback loop with the industry, which I think is very important. So you release something, so you're not working in isolation. People are commenting. There is a community. It's very important. The third thing is that there is a general goal behind all this work, which sometimes may be working for other industries. Maybe you don't feel it so much as with this industry. When you're working in the medical industry, basically, you have a mission, right? Supposedly.
Yeah.
In audio, you have a goal because you're providing the tools to make art. Same with film, same with photography, I guess. So be that a kind of motivation that works, and I think it's really something that you cannot think outside of this. This is very important. People are just into it. That's it.
Gotcha. You see, like last thing, really like last of the last, and it's not like it's just a thought. I don't have a clear answer to this. Since there is like a lot of startup owners or like a potential founders like listening to this, I just wonder, what stage or like what kind of learnings, like a startups owners should take from it, right? Because what we talk about is really like a major companies, but I mean, how like a fundamentals of project management, can be applied by, you have 3 people, just like so many roles you have to play. You are just like running like crazy, so.
Well, I think that, I mean, what I maybe would propose or encourage is that just read a little bit about the basic of software development, like software development process management. That's it. Like Google it, type it into AI, and just read about it. It's like a lot of this is like common things, common, how to say, terms that are being used. So I think that that's a great starting point, because even if you have 3 people, you have to coordinate them somehow, and then you have to use some kind of terminology. So why not start using the terminology that is used in the industry? So that's the thing. So yeah, so for the beginning, for like super small startups, just read about it. And also, like, I think that maybe it's not a something that I would recommend, but basically this is about having someone who has this mindset of what we said at the beginning. Okay, so there's an idea. So an idea is like someone who has a vision. So let that person have vision, but then get someone who is a party pooper. So meaning that is, straight to the point, down to very, like down to bottom, straight to the point, very grounded, and we'll say, okay, how we're gonna do this, for when,
how much will it cost? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how much it will cost, what will be the problems along the way. Someone with that factor that forces people, that can ask, someone who asks this question and is like very pulling, because if you don't have that person, the risk is that the visionary will just and this is actually the major, or maybe not the major, but this is the problem that I see a lot of in my experience. I've seen that in my experience, meaning that even in bigger companies, there is like these ambitions. Okay, we're gonna do this, and we want to do this for this and this date. But then there comes the reality. Okay, so this is what you're gonna do. This is what we need. We don't have this, blah 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 blah. And then you take time to realize that what you can actually do. And I think that it still happens, in companies, whenever, especially when there is like a company that provides products for clients. So maybe it's not like an audio industry per se, but when you have a company and clients are like sending you something and you have to process it some way, and you have a software that processes it, and then results have to be sent. It's like very dynamic. So then a lot of people in the industry, like stakeholders who work with clients, tend to promise unrealistic dates. So in our industry, in audio, it would be like, let's promise an unrealistic product shipment date with the features that are not very realistic. And then you really have to have someone who will take this through engineering and will tell you, okay, this is what we can really do, given the size of the company, the people that we have, the money that we have. And so my advice at the very beginning, have someone on board who has this mindset. It's going to be pain in the ass, but you need that person.
Yeah, that's a very good like a ending thought. Yeah, so having the founders team has to have also like a certain responsibilities. As long as they wear multiple hats, one of them has to be like a so-called project guy.
Gotcha. But it's probably hard to be a visionary and a watchdog in a way, in one person. So it's
I know what you mean. Yeah, some people have talents, and one person is actually like a great visionary, and then the other is more like a convergent thinking type of person who always, sort of like a challenge.
The tension between them is like actually a challenge, because the visionary, the product manager, so to speak, will challenge the the project manager to say, okay, I want this to be done faster. So it's a challenge. And then project manager will challenge the other one, okay, with saying, okay, so I need more resources, or maybe I need more money, or maybe you have to wait. And it's constant exchange, and it has to be, a hotline, so to speak.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Maciek. I could go,
Yeah, I mean,
for way
probably
longer.
just,
But I'm
like tipped a toe in the water, honestly.
yeah. Well, we can do another one. Again, maybe in your studio when we meet.
Sure, this is my studio actually. I mean, it's like, the rear back of it. It's a production studio. I mean, I mix here and I produce. It's not like recording. I wouldn't like track a live band here, though I could, but it's not like a proper live room. It's just one room for vocal, small instrument mixing. But yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Listen, Maciek, thank you again. And see you around soon.
See you then. Thank you, Wojciech. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you liked it. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and of course on our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to it and hit the bell, because we publish a lot of interesting videos there, not just the episodes. You can also become a supporter and get premium content like additional reading, unpublished videos on our Buy Me a Coffee page, linked in the description of this episode. See you in the next one. Yo.